Okay, so my machine shop has already sized these, assembled the pistons, but for whatever reason they don't choose to put on the rings, probably because they probably snap them as often as I do. I don't know, just kidding. So you got oil group, you know, you got your instructions, you got, these are clearly labeled oil group 3, oil group 3, those are the rings, these are the little separators. Top groove 1, second groove. So I won't even open the other packages until we're ready to use them. I'll open both package 3s because that's the one that has to go on first. You get 3 rings, top ring, center ring, and the third one is the oil control ring, they usually call it. So these are going to be just the discs, 2 each, one on the top, one on the bottom, and then these little wrinkly ones go in the middle. So I'm just going to read the instructions a little bit on them and make sure I know what I'm doing before I show anything on camera and steer somebody the wrong way. The ring 2 and 3 there is an absolute must on which is the top and which is the bottom. It's for oil control, it's for compression, it's for everything. So I just want to read up on this before I give any instruction on what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for the oil rings now. So you got one of these spacer type oil control rings each, of course, and 2 of the real thin black ones. So it says put the wrinkly one in first. Then put the top one, then put the bottom one from the bottom. Top one's in. And the bottom one is now in. Good. Do that on all 3. I'll come back. Okay, got all the oil ring grooves on there. General good practice, when where the brake is on one, I have it like here, and the other one, you know, make it on the other side. Don't overlap them directly. Much less critical on the oil rings. But still, just offset them so that the compression can't just blow right by. It's got to go down. You know, let's say it gets in the gap there. It's got to go down all the way around the piston, then can leak down. It's not going to happen. Ring 2. If there's any dots, the pistons I have here, or the rings rather, if there's any dots, that means that faces to the top of that ring groove. So let's see if there are any dots, and then that will matter. And I do have dots. They're very hard to see, but that means this ring is not symmetrical. They're not the same on both sides, top and bottom. And actually I can see that here. There's a little, not going to show up on camera, but there's a little notch on the one side there. So mine, the rings will go with the dots facing up. I'll install those, bring you back. Now I've got all the center ones on, and I'll just double check. I got a dot facing up, We got a dot facing up. And dot facing up. So we're good there. Second ring is good. Now for the top ring, or top groove 1 they call it here. See if these have dots on them. And at first glance I'm going to say no, but I'm going to clean them up a little bit here and make sure. Okay, on the set of rings I have here, I don't see any differences between flipping them this way. They have no dot, they have no etchings, and so these ones can go on either way. I'll do that, bring you back. Now before I put those rings all in there, there's several steps that a professional engine builder would do for you if you were having it built, or that you should do, let's say. You can measure the ring end gap. So this cylinder's been bored oversized, and I got the appropriate rings for that. What you can do, you put these in the cylinder, and you want to make sure you have that exactly flat. And there's a great tool for that. It's called the piston. Now it's exactly flat. You could measure this ring end gap with a feeler gauge and figure out if that's the proper amount of end gap. Look up your specification, then you could put it down halfway. You would have had to actually do that before you had the piston built with the rings on it. You could get it pretty close by probably pushing it down there, but the piston, what's nice is it's perfectly flat. It's perfectly lined in there because it's sitting on the other rings right now. But you could do it halfway down, all the way down. Like if you were checking a cylinder that hadn't been bored, you would want to sense how much run out you had. Hopefully it's already gone by the time you get your machining back. It would have to be gone by the time you have your machining back, but if you were doing just a re-ring job, you would want to check it at the top, the middle, and the bottom, and that would give you a very accurate reading on how much taper the cylinder has. Oftentimes it wears more at the top because the cylinder has to flip around side to side there. It gets a little egg-shaped. So just a little tip there. Okay, we got that out of the way. All the rings are on, all the pistons. Now I'm just going to clean up the inside of where the bearings are going to go. Use a nice clean rag. I'm just using disposables today because that's just the way to do it. And then you're sure you don't have any kind of contaminants left behind. You're dealing with the clean rag every time, but otherwise you could probably get away with a shop towel. Okay, so now as far as the caps go, we'll just zip those off. And these are specific to the rod that they came with. Do not interchange them with each other. They have been professionally sized as an assembly while torqued. Get out our rod bearings here. And similar to the crankshaft, some of these have a little hole in them for the oil, and some have them, oh, I'm sorry, these have them on both sides. How about that? Didn't know that. Okay, very well then, we'll go with that. So I just zipped off all the nuts for the caps on the connecting rods here. I opened up the pack of bearings and noticed that both sides have the oil hole. Obviously only one side is required for the oil hole because the cap won't have an oil hole. But I think they give you the bearings that way just so they can just make one bearing that fits both sides, maybe. And also then you can't screw up and not put one in there the correct way. You know, if you had one with that required a hole and then you put the other side in there and covered over the oil hole, it would starve it. So maybe that's why. Don't know why. Probably just they make one part and put it on both sides. And as you can see, ours is lined up there. Let's get the cap. This one doesn't matter, but the groove the groove is automatically going to dictate which way it goes in. And these also absolutely matter which side they go on. Absolutely does matter. And I'll just do all those the same. Okay, so we're getting ready. We got our pistons with all the rings on them. Bearings are in the places they go. And then I'm just going to use motor oil for here. I don't like to use assembly lube for this. I think it's a little too tacky, almost grabby for the cylinders. And again, not even one drop of dirt better get on these cylinder walls or the pistons. So I've actually purchased a brand new piston ring compressor just for this, so I'm sure it doesn't have a single bit of dirt that's going to get pushed down into there. Lube these all up, and then I'm going to lubricate all the pistons and rings so they'll have a little bit to start with. Just dab it, let it get in that groove a little bit there all the way around. Get the skirts. Stay. Don't you spill. I'm just using the regular motor oil that it's going to run on. Cylinder 1 here, I put the crank, I turned it so the journal's all the way at the bottom. So we'll be able to put it in pretty far without trouble. Alright, I got this all lubed up. Now the trick is the piston has a arrow, and we will face said arrow towards the flywheel. And you don't want to, a lot of people put rubber boots on these, or you know, piece of fuel line or something. Just be careful as you're guiding it down there. I got mine at the way bottom, so I'll grab it from the bottom when we get to that point. And of course the rings now becomes the most important. I got one facing with the gap facing this way, and I got the other one with the opening facing this way. And so we'll put our ring compression tool on there. All this does is squeeze them in. Oh jeez, yeah, everything's full of oil now. Maybe work it around, get all the rings to compress evenly. And no, I shouldn't be doing this on top of my machine surface there. That's about as far as this one's going to crank. So we put it in there. Get the piston to go through. And with something soft, we will tap that piston, and it should go in very easy if you got everything compressed right. And it is. I'm barely hitting it. And now we're seeing we're stopping. So now let's see if we can get another crank out of this. And we did. Still something stuck. Got another click out of it. You got to get those rings to go in, so sometimes you got to tap it a little bit. Let's see. Still no good. Trying to really crank this thing. Not going. Give it another try. Nope, not going to do it. So let's see what's going on here. We're at the oil ring. It's possible I didn't have the tool down. No, it's not possible I didn't have the tool down far enough, because it slid in. At any rate, we'll reconvene. I'm going to turn the tool to a different position to see if it might have just been where I had one of the rings sitting. Alright, try it again. Piston facing proper way. Yes, it is. And we're stuck again. And we're right at the ring. We're right at the same location. I'm going to turn it to make sure we're not hitting something with the connecting rod. It actually did spin a little. But that was not our issue. Interesting. This is not compressing those rings properly. This band is not really at the bottom, and I don't think you could move it. I think it's riveted in place. Yeah, you can move that. Not good. Bring you back. Let's try it again. I reseated, took it off and put it back on. No. Every time I get to that oil ring, it pops out before it's really in the bore. Not cool. I think one of the reasons is, if you look at the way this tool is built, it's got a lot of overlap here. This is made for, this is a very small piston compared to most automotive pistons. You see how it's got an overlap there. It's several layers around, and it just slides on itself. And there's some hanging out here, of course. But I wonder if, because this piston is such a small diameter, this tool isn't exactly built for ones this small, because I've never had a problem with one like that before. Okay, finally got number one in. Took a little finagling. Alright, then we'll go down to the bottom here. Yeah, everything looks good. It came in straight. I'll put this cap back on. So we don't get it mixed up with another one. And that tool is just a little too short. How about that? I want to get it on there though. At least one nut. I guess I can turn it. No, I don't want to turn it. That should hold it. Now put in the other two.